So just the other day, one of my subscribers contacted me and he said, Richard, my local store says if I add water lettuce, I don't need a filter. Is that true? And I guess the answer is kind of, but let me explain more. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Richard and I'm a shrimp keeper based in the UK. So before we get too deep into today's topic, I just wanted to share some great news with you. And that is, this morning when I was feeding my shrimp, I noticed the black rose shrimp had babies in the tank. I probably counted 10 to 15, there's probably more in there hopefully. But with a bit of luck, I can start to build that colony up. And I know, because they don't breed 100% true, they breed not only the black roses, but they throw out blues and browns and such likes. I know I'm gonna have to cull hard. I know I'm gonna have to take out the ones that don't quite meet the grade and put them into a cull tank where they can just live their life out happily. I'm really excited to put up a big, strong colony of black rose shrimp. So the subject of today's video is, do you actually need a filter in your shrimp tank? And what are the pros and cons of having or not having a filter? Let's start by addressing, what do we mean by a filter? Now this might seem like a simple question. Everyone knows what a filter does, right? But let's just cover it super quickly for those who don't. A filter in our shrimp tank essentially has two jobs. One is to physically remove debris from the water, to take any detritus, etc., and physically lock it away in the filter, making it easy for us to keep our shrimp tank clean, because we just need periodically take that filter out, clean it, return it to the tank, and the debris is removed. But it also provides biological filtration. What do I mean by biological filtration? When our shrimp, or our fish for that matter, go to the bathroom, their waste is high in ammonia. Unfortunately, ammonia is really toxic to aquatic life. Fortunately, there is a strain of beneficial bacteria present in our aquariums that convert that highly toxic ammonia into the slightly less toxic nitrite, with an I. Now the problem is, nitrite is also toxic, although not quite so much, is also toxic to aquatic life. Again, we're lucky, there is another strain of beneficial bacteria living in our aquariums that take that nitrite and turn it into the far less toxic nitrate, this time with an A. Our fish and our shrimps can stand surprisingly high levels of nitrates. What our filter does is essentially provide the perfect place for these strains of beneficial bacteria to live and to grow and multiply. They live on the filter media, the sponges, the ceramic rings, whatever it might be, and the filter's job is to draw water in, pass it across the beneficial bacteria so they can consume the ammonia or the nitrite, and then go back out into the tank. It essentially keeps our water clean. That is the basic job of a filter. However, it doesn't tell the full story, because our shrimp typically have a very low bioload. What does that mean? That means they don't create a great deal of waste, providing we don't overfeed our shrimp, because then the food itself actually breaks down and causes ammonia. Providing we only feed our shrimp the correct amount, the amount of waste, the amount of ammonia they produce is actually surprisingly low. So we may be able to get away with not having a filter. So what are the pros and cons of having or not having a filter? In my setups behind me, I've got some tanks, like the orange really shrimp, doesn't have a filter. I've got others like the black roses, which are running on an under gravel filter. I've got sponge filters, I've got hang-on back filters. On the goldfish, I'm running canister filters. I've pretty much got them all here. In shrimp tanks with a filter, typically the aquarium is much more forgiving. You can overfeed a little bit. You can overstock a little bit. If you do water changes, you can be a little more lax on your water changes compared to if you don't have a filter. In a shrimp tank like the Blue Diamonds behind me that runs a sponge filter, there will be more than enough bacteria living in that tank to deal with all the waste from those shrimp. But with that said, with the orange really shrimp up here, I don't run a filter at all. So how can I get away with that? Fortunately, the beneficial bacteria that convert the shrimp waste all the way from ammonia to nitrate, they essentially cover all surfaces in the aquarium more or less equally. They'll be on the glass, on the gravel, on the rock, on the woods, on the plant leaves, on the airline tubes that come down to the air stones. They cover everything more or less equally. Now filters provide the perfect breeding ground for them, but without a filter, you will typically have enough beneficial bacteria still present in the aquarium to convert any waste from the shrimp. Now if you keep a tank with 6 Oscars in and no filter, there's clearly not going to be enough bacteria just living on the glass and the gravel. The bioload from a group of Oscars is phenomenal compared to that of the shrimp. So whilst a filter provides the perfect location for those bacteria to live and to grow and to multiply, so you can get away with not having a filter, providing you don't overstock your aquarium and you don't overfeed the inhabitants. If you keep 6 shrimp in a 5-gallon tank, but you're chucking in fistfuls of food every day, there's no way there'll be enough bacteria present just on the glass and the gravel and the rocks to process the waste from that food breaking down. So before we take a look at what might be the best filter to run on your shrimp tanks, I just wanted to let you know that my new book on Neocaridina shrimp is so close to being completed. It's going to be out any day now. This really is the most comprehensive book I've ever written. At this point, we're pushing 30,000 words, dozens and dozens of colour pictures. It really is going to be a complete guide to keeping Neocaridina shrimp. Now, I'll put a link in the description and a QR code on the screen, and depending on when you're watching this, if the book isn't ready yet, you can follow the link and just put your email address in, and I'll let you know as soon as it's ready. And if the book is out, you can download your copy by following the link. So if you are going to run a filter, what's the best filter to run in your shrimp tank? Well, the truth be told, it doesn't matter. They're all much of a muchness. Whether you run a sponge filter, a hang-on-back, an under gravel filter, a canister filter, they all essentially will provide more than enough surface area for beneficial bacteria to develop on. The only thing you need to be aware of, if you're going to run a hang-on-back filter or a canister filter, those filters work by sucking water out of the aquarium through an uplift tube. And those uplift tubes have strainers on which are great for keeping fish out. They're absolutely hopeless at keeping shrimp out. What will typically happen is the uplift tube will be in the aquarium with the strainer on, the filter will be running, the shrimp will swim by, especially the baby shrimp, and sucked up the tube, gone. Into the filter, sometimes they survive, mainly they don't. That'll be the end of your shrimp. If you're running a hang-on-back or a canister filter, just make sure you purchase yourself an intake sponge. And an intake sponge goes over that strainer, and it means the water can still get sucked into the filter, but the shrimp can't. It's absolutely perfect. Whenever I run a canister filter or a hang-on-back filter, an intake sponge is the first thing I add. Now, if you are going to run your aquarium without a filter, there is one caveat. You still need circulation. Circulation means the temperature of the water remains even more or less throughout the entire aquarium because the water is circulating. It means the oxygen levels remain more or less equal because the water is circulating in the aquarium. The best way to achieve circulation, if you're not running a filter, is just to run a simple air stone. As the air stone bubbles away in the aquarium, the water as it rises, the water gets drawn with it, and you essentially end up with this kind of a motion of the water in the aquarium. Plus, having an air stone running means as the bubbles rise, they break on the surface, you get surface agitation. And surface agitation allows carbon dioxide in the water to escape and fresh oxygen to be brought in, meaning A, your water doesn't become stagnant, and B, your shrimp can breathe, which is always nice. Now, you may remember the original question I was asked is, does adding water lettuce mean you don't need a filter? And the reason the answer is there is it's because adding any live plants will reduce your need for a filter. Because as live aquarium plants grow, they absorb ammonia, nitrite and nitrates from the water. Any aquarium with live aquatic plants will be a cleaner, safer environment for your fish and shrimp than one without. The principle here, I guess the store owner was getting at, is by having the water lettuce, you perhaps don't need a filter because as the water lettuce grow, their roots trail in the water. It's a floating plant, their roots trail in. They will absorb the waste from the shrimp, essentially the ammonia and the nitrite and even the nitrates as they grow. Water lettuce grows incredibly quickly. In fact, it's damn near a pest. You're constantly having to take huge handfuls of it out the tank and dumping them. Fast growing plants absorb huge quantities of ammonia, nitrite and nitrates from the tank, reducing your reliance on a filter. So can you keep your shrimp in a tank without a filter? Yes, you can, providing you set the tank up properly, you make sure you've got circulation and you don't overfeed your shrimp. So there are many different types of filters we can use in our shrimp tanks if we decide we want to use a filter. In this tank here, I use a custom under gravel filter. And if you want to see how I built that filter, why not watch this video next? Thanks for watching.